Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Morning Buzz. Let's hear it. Woo! Thank you. Good morning. I'm Adam Eisen. I'm the membership director here at the One Club for Creativity and your host. We're back with another amazing live episode featuring more inspiring members from the One Club community. We're on day 2 of Creative Week. Did anyone go to Young Ones yesterday? Did I have anybody there? My staff go? Am I in the wrong place? Okay. Jeez, is this Creative Week? All right. Today we have some portfolio reviews, and later, for the first time ever during Creative Week, we have the TDC Winners Announcement Ceremony and Exhibition opening. So that's super exciting. And that's just day 2, so we've got a lot more to come. But that's not what we're here for right now. Right here, we're here to get buzzed. So today we'll hear from 2 creatives who took matters into their own hands to increase diversity inside their agency and for the industry. We'll get a hot take from a senior strategist and meet one incredible independent creative director, all in the next hour. So let's get started. First up, I'm pleased to introduce our first guest from Barkley OKRP. Tom Demetriou is currently the executive creative director at Barkley OKRP, where he leads 2 Barkley OKRP creative teams, one in Kansas City and one in Denver. In addition to growing 20 years worth of thick skin and ad agency creative departments, he has also co-founded a video production company and has done national voiceover work for brands like Dairy Queen, Marmot, H&R Block, and recently narrated a 60-minute ESPN documentary. Let's give it up for Tom. Woo-hoo. I'm like warm, guys. I maybe shouldn't have done the dancing. Oops.
Thanks for that intro.
Thanks for being here.
And thanks for the hot mic.
Yes, love a hot mic. And joining Tom on the set is Sam Bonds. Sam Bonds is an award-winning creative leader and art director with over 20 years of agency experience and a lifetime of art making. During stints at agencies in Austin, New York City, Atlanta, and Philadelphia, his work in creative guidance has driven businesses for the likes of AT&T, Chevrolet, Southwest Airlines, and AMC Theaters, amongst many other world-renowned brands. Sam brings a calm, problem-solving energy to creative leadership and an authenticity to the work He joined Barkley OKRP in 2020 as SVP Creative Director. Let's hear it for Sam. Hey, Sam, how are you?
Adam, I'm great.
Do we have your mic up?
Do we?
Let's see, testing.
There we go, testing.
There we go, there we are. All right, so we're gonna start back at the beginning. You're both big dogs in the creative world, but let's go back to the beginning and talk about how you got your start in advertising.
That's a long time ago. Adam. My start in advertising, I took the traditional path, which was portfolio school. I attended a school in Atlanta called Creative Circus. I took kind of a roundabout way to get there, but I kind of figured out that was probably the best path, the most certain path to a career as a creative in advertising, and I took the leap. It's a 2-year program. I think that's fairly traditional, fairly common if you look around at all the different portfolio schools. But I completed the copywriting program there, and then my bet paid off. I found work in advertising and worked my way up through creative departments over the years. But but Creative Circus was my entry point.
Cool, awesome. Sam, how about you?
A similar path after learning about ad schools.
Yeah.
So once I learned about them after undergrad, I ended up in Atlanta also at a sister school to Creative Circus called Portfolio Center. That's essentially it. They gave me all the tools to be an art director in the business.
Yeah.
Then I had my stumbles and met Tom in my first job. We were partners.
So Tom, you went to undergrad and then straight into portfolio school. From there, you went undergrad for advertising.
I did,
clarify.
yeah.
So it's somewhat traditional. Yours was a little less straightforward.
Yes, it was. I went to Howard University in D.C., HBCU, and I majored in graphic design, graduated, stayed in the D.C. area where I grew up, and worked for a management consulting firm as a graphic designer.
Exciting.
I don't recommend it. And hence, I talked to a buddy of mine who had gone to Howard with me a couple of years earlier, and he'd gone to the Portfolio Center in Atlanta. And while I was, playing with just navy blue, olive green, and yellow, because their clients, my clients were military based, he was at BBD&O in New York, wearing shorts and jeans to work, and I was wearing ties, and I shortly thereafter quit my job and went to the Portfolio Center.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And we're going to lay a little bit of groundwork here. Can you talk a little bit about the difference of going to an HBCU and then portfolio school, and what were those environments like? How are they different, especially in the diversity conversation?
Wow, what a question. Well, HBCUs for young black college goers, it's a very welcoming environment. It's very, home and family, and internal conversations around race and culture are very embracing and empowering. Not in any as a reaction to anything, just by nature. So that transition from Howard as an HBCU to Portfolio Center is a stark contrast. So you are one of many in one environment, and then you are one of few in the next. Even though the school itself, Portfolio Center, most ad schools are relatively small. That's the immediate contrast for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so since then, you've both gone on to have incredible careers. Beyond the work and the awards that you've won, one of the most impressive things is that over the last couple of years, you've launched the Creative Accelerator program at Barkley OKRP. So first, let's start. Can you let us know what exactly the Creative Accelerator program is?
Sure. The Creative Accelerator, to be specific, it is a 1-year paid position, so competitive salary and full benefits at Barkley OKRP. And it's effectively a portfolio school combined with hands-on real-world training for young creative talent. We actively recruit young creative talent from underrepresented backgrounds. We're looking for kids with atypical portfolios not typical portfolios. We immerse them in an agency environment for a year, combining that with some traditional portfolio school classes, but then also real-world assignments, so they work on real briefs, real projects. And at the end of a year, the goal is that they've got the experience and the skills to start their career as a creative in advertising.
That's awesome. That's amazing. What inspired you to start the program?
Well, I think, the short answer is 2020. And I think, I would say Barkley, at the time, Barkley was Barkley. It's now Barkley OKRP. But at the time, I feel, and I think Sam would agree, that Barkley has been an agency that walked the walk when it comes to diversity, and it truly believes in it. Obviously, there are challenges. It was a decision that was made that we had to do something to make things better. We had to do something to make a difference in the wake of 2020. We talked, I specifically remember talking to my Chief Creative Officer, Katie Hornaday, and there was a conversation about doing a better job of recruiting BIPOC talent, diverse talent. And I remember her saying, yeah, but if we do that, we're not helping change the industry. We're just, Barkley's getting more diverse, but the industry isn't getting more diverse. How do we make the industry more diverse? She also went to portfolio school, and the idea that we hit on was, what if we redesign portfolio school? What if we reimagine that and make a different entry point, build a new entry point? And I think that's probably the long and the short of it in terms of just an idea, and then Barkley stayed committed to the idea, invested in the idea, and we had a great first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sam, for you, any other inspirations or things that were really important for you as you were considering and having these initial talks about what this program might be and offer?
For sure. I think first, Tom invited me into the conversation around creating or solving for this more, I think, holistic addition of diversity to the industry. And the pivotal piece for me became, well, the distinction that we can make is, let's make this a paid program.
Yeah.
So to set aside actual dollars, that level of investment for 4 roles is way different than creating a school, even a school that was potentially cheaper than traditional portfolio schools. Sure. That was a pivotal piece for me, and because I think that it solidified that, okay, 4 people that we recruit well are going to end up with that Barkley logo, a well-respected agency name on their LinkedIn. So that out the gate changes how you're perceived.
Yeah.
From there, you're going to grow, of course. That's the expectation, but that meant a lot, and the agency committed to it, which meant a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So the idea originated here with the creative team. How did you bring it to life from there, and what support did you need from the agency?
Tons. From there, it was a matter of once we got leadership's approval, we really got a ton of help from the agency. Folks were raising hands left and right to be professors, as we were calling them, or mentors, as we were calling them, and our HR team stepped up, and they've done the bulk of the work. Kate, I'm shouting out. She's done so much to be the glue. Kate Moore. Just sorry, I wanted to get her full name out there. She's done so much to pull together the resources, everything from the recruiting process, which we're going through now, you guys will hear more about,
Cool.
to helping to organize the folks who will build out the curriculum, and then carrying it all out and being a point person for, I'm specifying her role because it illustrates how we got everybody involved. And so having that to pull in the various people in the agency that would help build it was significant.
Awesome. how did, and do you want to walk us through a little bit more of your setup of the program itself and how it takes shape over the course of a year?
Sure, if I can read it. I will just throw in one piece that I think was very cool and kind of important, is that we committed, I say we, I mean that's the agency leadership who committed to investing in it. Our chief creative officer, Katie Hornaday, Kate Moore, who heads up our recruiting department, but everybody, we committed to this idea before we knew how we were going to do it. So it got the green light, and we still weren't sure about a lot of things, and we're figuring a lot of stuff out on the fly. So recruiting was key. The kids themselves are so key because we were fortunate to find 4 great young people. Sam was really big on that and making sure that they felt like there could be some team camaraderie was there, and that aspect really worked out, and that's so important because if perhaps they're not if some of your people are not the best people or they don't get along, I think that we would have had a very different outcome. But we lucked out there, 4 great young people. To answer your question, we devised we broke the year up into 4 parts, and so the first part, which maybe some of you can see on your screen, was immersion. The idea there is just dropping into an ad agency atmosphere is like overload and overwhelming. So give them a chance to just sort of start soaking it all up, shadow some people, sit in on meetings, understand what brand strategy does. What is brand strategy? What is a good creative idea? Just all those things. Soak all that up. And then next was ideation. So that was really talking about breaking a year up into quarters. Ideation is just what it sounds like, training them and teaching them, how do you come up with ideas? What's a good idea? What's an idea that's on strategy? What's an idea that maybe seems cool to you but maybe isn't on brief? Figuring those kinds of things out. And then we, thank you, Sam, right on cue. And we focused on quarter 3, which is integration, which is learning what other teams do, understanding different roles. By the way, it's at that point where, they're so young, they're 22 or 23. They're maybe still figuring out who they want to be and what discipline they want to do. And we've got a cool story, and I'll let Sam talk to that about it. One of our kids came in thinking that she wanted to be an art director, but she found a different lane and she has flourished. I'll let Sam talk to that in a minute. But and then individuation is really, okay, now you've learned a lot. Who are you? What's your self-expression? What's your book going to look like? And we were lucky enough at Barkley specifically to have a relatively young creative team who jumped in, worked totally hands-on with these kids on their books, on their portfolios, even helped them with their websites. But okay, what does the homepage of your website look like? Well, that's up to you. So coming back to yourself again and remembering who you are and what your taste is and what your sense of humor is, and finding that again after you've sort of been taught all this stuff. So that's basically how the program works. I think we'll do it roughly. Oh boy, I'm getting the hook. I think we'll do it roughly the same way this year as we did last year. But we definitely learned a lot, and there's definitely lots of room to improve, and so we'll be making some improvements.
Amazing. I'd like to go back, and so there's your structure of the program. What were you looking for in the talent that you were recruiting, since you weren't going through traditional ad channels? Can you tell us some stories about some of the folks that you are considering?
Indeed. So we were just appreciating that creativity presents itself in so many different ways, and that when you're thinking about diversity, that's one of the things you want. You want different types of creative people. You don't necessarily need traditional advertising trained or even exposed folks. You want folks who have passion, for one, who are excited and at least aware of the industry, not necessarily fully immersed in it, or their expression is in the form of advertising. Yeah. We really wanted to be able to bring young folks in who had a creative passion, whatever that might be. Whether or not we thought it was something that we could have blossom into advertising, we didn't know necessarily. Yeah. We just wanted to have that passion and a sense of excitement around the potential of advertising. And so up here we have Aaron Denson was one of our, he's currently a designer at Barkley OKRP, but he was one of our then candidates, and his art form came in the shape of shoes that he would design and paint and customize. So that's a good example of the range.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So after the first 4 quadrants through your first year, can you tell us some results? How did the first year turn out?
I mean, I think it went really well. Judging from this slide here, we won 2 awards, one of which being a Mosaic Award from the AAF, and then a Gold Clio, which is tremendous. And you can see Chase here on the slide, and Kimberly. Kimberly was, as Tom referenced, one of our candidates who had come in excited about being a visual, like art director or designer. She was really, she had a portfolio of ideas that she'd pursued, and that's what we reviewed when we sat with her, Tom and I, after she'd gone through several rounds of interviews with our range of interviewers. And when we spoke with her and looked at her work, there was clearly passion. Her work was probably not going to be competitive, but she was brilliant. So we thought, let's bring her in and figure it out. After being in for a little while, she didn't necessarily blossom as that visual creative, but again, she was still brilliant. Yeah. She contributed to several real client projects. And at a certain point, we sat with her and told her, look, you're an incredible creative. As a matter of fact, you're a really good writer, judging from some of the work that you'd done. And turned out that Kim was highly responsible for that Clio Award. So amazing. That's a great story.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
After 2020, I think it's fair to say a lot of agencies and organizations started initiatives to diversify the industry and attract new talent. And now we're 4 years away from that, and the conversation is really shifting around but are we retaining them? Are we helping them grow? I really like this story. I can see how some of that may be successful. I know that you offered positions to all 4 of these folks after completing the first year. Can you speak to how you think that this is creating an ecosystem that fosters them for a longer life cycle within Barkley OKRP and the industry?
For sure. I'll take that, Tom. I think our approach to it is organic, as opposed to, we could have gone the route of, hey, let's find creatives who are out there and bring them into Barkley. I think that's what Katie was challenging, our chief creative officer. But doing it the way that we've seen or we've decided to do it, we are creating creatives for the ad industry, and we're creating them with the intention of diversifying the industry, not only in ethnicity or background, cultural background, but also in just creative thinking.
Yeah.
Folks who would not necessarily have been in advertising coming into the industry, I think, helps us all. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think, and this is something Sam has pointed out, but I mean, for them, their experience, I think, was unique. I don't think it was easy. They came in sort of rough young talent and with a lot to learn, but one of the things our program did do was, through the course of that year, build for them, and by the way, they had to be good people and they had to develop these relationships, but it built for them a network.
Yeah.
So they know me and Sam, they know our chief creative officer, they know us all well.
Yeah.
And then, dozens of other people they've gotten to know really well who are people at various stages of their creative careers or perhaps work in different departments. So in terms of helping change the way things work, it's a different entry point, and it's a different way of helping young people branch out and establish a network that you just, we didn't get that coming in. You didn't get that coming out of portfolio school. You didn't get that in your first job.
Yeah.
You didn't know who the head creative was. You didn't have access to that person. They did, and they do, and so I think that's a difference as well.
Amazing. And before we take some questions from the audience, would you have any advice to agencies looking to create new inroads in the industry or launch a similar program?
I'd say jump, just commit, decide and commit. Don't get your toes wet kind of thing. Just jump in there, make the decision to invest, make a financial investment, create a structure that works for your agency. We will by all means share, cooperate, collaborate, compete. Let's see who can build this thing out the best. Yeah. Let's put some of our creative competitiveness to adding diversity to the industry and see how what we can make.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that is a standing offer that comes from our chief creative officer too. But open invitation. Any agency or any individual who wants to learn more about this program, we will share everything that we've learned. By the way, we did learn a lot of things, some of it the hard way. We did definitely build the plane as we were flying it, but happy to share the blueprint. That's the whole idea is the more folks we get thinking like this, the more agencies could build something like this, the better off we're all gonna be. So that offer stands. And I will also say one more thing. We're still accepting applicants for 2024. So, but you need to get those in soon.
Cool.
So by the end of the week or by early next week.
Amazing. Cool. Let's hear it for Sam and Tom. And would love to get a question or two. I see my question asker back there. But what questions do we have from our audience? Oh, here we go, right up front, from Louisiana.
Thanks. Incredible program. Thank you for sharing. I was wondering if the Creative Accelerator program is based only if you have to be local to Kansas City. Because I know you have offices in several different cities, and I wasn't sure if other offices would take on those apprentices.
It is based in Kansas City. The program is based in Kansas City. However, year one of our 4 students, they ended up calling themselves the cadets, which was very cool. She was cadets with a Z. It was very important. It is kind of cool. One of our 4 cadets who completed the program fully remotely from Chicago. So Jelly Hornauer was able to do that, and she's now employed as a writer on our fuel team. So I think it was important that 3 of the students were in Kansas City. Also, it is a competitive salary with full-time benefits. I think we would, a move is a potential. So, but I would also say no rules. So, but it is KC based.
Support for the move, more important.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that this isn't just a paid internship, that it is a full-time salary and benefits. So it's really a remarkable investment on the agency's behalf. Just in some conversations I was having, I was like, oh, no. It's really a big deal. Do we have another question? Yes.
Hi. Y'all mentioned that y'all found some things that you would change. What's the biggest thing that you would change the next time y'all try this?
Well, I think more structure and probably challenging the kids with more expectations. I think we didn't want to overwhelm them, and not knowing what the right balance was, we probably gave them more free time than they needed. I think we found that they wanted more more specific challenges, more to do, and so that's what we would probably add more next time.
I think we also learned some of the types of things that might help them, like the range of information that they could benefit from, whether it's processes or systems within the company that help them either get information or ask the right questions or understand a particular discipline. All of those things were just kind of, they came, at random points throughout the year in terms of who was getting what or what individual interest could have used more or less.
Awesome. We have time for one last question. I'm going to squeeze it in there. I know there's one out there. Yeah?
Yeah, so at the beginning you had mentioned you were looking for an atypical portfolio other than painting shoes and things like that. What do you look for then in an atypical portfolio?
I think it comes in whatever form of expression that you have as a creative person. Ultimately, most creatives who have a focus also have other creative pursuits, and we're into that. But whatever you're most passionate about and you tend to be most, I'd say, prolific with in terms of creation or expression, we want to see that, because we want to see where your excitement lies, because it gives us a sense of how we can help it, how we can help bring it out in the context of advertising.
I will add, it was a great moment for me, but Aaron, who is he's just a wonderful young guy. He just had such an interesting story. He just started designing as he played college. He played like Division II college football. I hope he didn't play Division I. He'll be mad at me. But he started designing his own cleats, and his teammates were like, "Oh my God, those were so cool. Would you do mine?" And then it went from there. So that was his book. But I'll tell you also, at the end of his interview, I think we said, anything else, any questions for us or anything else you want to say? He goes, "Yeah, if you hire me, I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to make you proud of me." And we hung up the Zoom call, and Sam and I were like, okay, well, there's things like that too. Yeah. It's not just your book. There are things like that too that are, of course, as we know, are so important. So.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Tom and Sam. Thank you both for being here. If you do have any more questions or want to learn more, they've been very adamant. Please reach out to them. They'd love to speak more about their work. Thank you both. Thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm super excited to introduce our next guest. I think a morning buzz. First, we have a strategist to share. As one of the inaugural shapers of the deep end at 160/90, Dyana is a senior strategist who distills from the vast Endeavor network to create brand opportunities enmeshed in culture, turning pop pulses into provocations, macro shifts to manifestos. As a strategist, she's worked with Marriott, Chess.com, Ultimate Fighting Championship, Stanford Arts, GitLab, and the Barcelona Metropolitan Think Tank. Before 160/90, she was a category designer, history teacher, and journalist. She's obsessed with community third spaces. That's okay where it is. And community third spaces, especially dojos. I did not want to leave that out. And film festivals. Here to tell us more about Deep End at 160/90, please help me welcome Dyana So. Hi, Dyana. Thank you for being here. I'll give you the precious clicker.
All right. Wow, the hair color matches what I actually have in real life here. Let's see if it works. Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk about something I get to do on a daily basis called the Deep End. I represent a company called 160/90, and as the name suggests, for those of you who might have visited your doctor lately, is an elevated blood pressure. We say this because we believe as a creative cultural marketing agency, we want to make people feel something real with the brands that we work with. We are powered by the Endeavor Difference, which is a parent company that is a global sports and entertainment company that touches everything from the UFC, as you've heard earlier, to various industries in film, books, etc. So I'm here today to talk a little bit more about something that is super easy to understand, culture. No. So why does culture matter? In fact, they told me to point here and I'm going to listen. So culture matters tremendously, especially in marketing. But when you get it wrong or you approach it on just surface executions, what happens? A lot of disingenuous execution. Perhaps, let's say you want to connect to Hispanic audiences and you think, let's slap our logo on the Cinco de Mayo event. We're done. On the other hand, when you do endeavor to engage more, you can cultivate more insightful ideas because you're actually living and engaging with the cultures you're trying to get to know, the communities, their values. And then if you're really spending a lot of time to get to know that, because culture is living, you make deeper connections. And the beauty of making those deeper connections is that it changes you on a personal level, as a creative, as a strategist, as a professional. But also you start to see what could happen next in culture, because after all, it is living. This type of depth matters also in creativity as well. This is one of my favorite quotes from David Lynch, in which he compares ideas to being like fish. We all should aspire to get beyond the fishes or the ideas that we can get on the surface. If you really want that cherished, creative idea to go that extra mile and say, I found something that I really want to get behind and inspire others with, you have to go deep. Because the fish down there are huge, abstract, perhaps strange, but also very beautiful. At 160/90, we cherish that type of depth tremendously. And because of that, we've invested the time and resources to create a gathering place for our cultural insights, intelligence, and understanding. I'm very grateful that I get to spend my time as a strategist ordering the chaos that is all the insights we get on a daily basis in this space, but more so because it's not just a space of my own. It's a place where a lot of my colleagues spend, whether that's a talent agent, thinking about who is this talent thinking about, what are they thinking about for their future, and integrating with me, and thinking about what's next in culture. We call this the deep end. And unlike the usual use of this idiom where we say, oh, this person must have gone off to the deep end, they're lost, we actually do try to surface back up and make sense of the information that we gather. We distinguish ourselves by being proactive and reactive when it comes to culture. What does this mean, and why is it so important? When we're reactive with culture, we risk following trends. If we're following trends, that means we're chasing after the clean girl aesthetic, cottagecore, and as easy as it is to go through that and get all the viral likes, chasing virality is not where the nuance is at. If you really want to make a connection, you have to take a step back and ask yourselves, why? Why are people interested in pursuing aesthetics now and not another time in the past? Or perhaps there is a pattern from the past. Why is that important, and why should brands know this? So I get to spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff. And one of the ways that we really manifest those ideas is through this report called The Deep End. It's our inaugural report connected to the fact that our department was opened just a few months ago. So we are building our own plane and trying to land it too. And in this report, I'm happy to dive a little bit deeper into what we called cultural currents. And there's 4. I don't have enough time to go through all 4, but I am happy to say that our report is available on our website for free. If you go to 160/90 and search for Deep End, I'll also have the link at the end of this. But I couldn't leave here today without at least going deeper into 2 of the currents that we went through, so you can get a real sense of how we're anchoring ourselves around the ways that brands can engage in culture that's going to last for a few more years. When we say cultural currents, we're talking about the conversations and territories, or the lens that brands can anchor themselves in to think more openly about, how do I engage with this complex, dynamic, fast-moving world? If you're telling me don't chase after trends and aesthetics, what should I be chasing after? So let's start with age ambiguity. There we go. So, age ambiguity. As the name suggests, and in many ways captured by this very venue here, we're seeing that age is becoming a lot less of an identifier of who people are. More people are converging into this fresh and dynamic cultural courtyard that we're restructuring together. So yes, while many people are saying millennial this, Gen Z that, we're seeing the opposite of once those conversations start to die down, what's really happening is that we're seeing less of a vibe towards Bachelor in Paradise and more into Golden Bachelor. So think of more young and old coming together because of common passion points, less because, well, we're coming together because we're in our 40s, or shifting perceptions around age-appropriate third spaces. Statistically, we are seeing that more people are claiming that age is not so much of a defining factor when it comes to dating, that when it comes to popular video games such as Grand Theft Auto, the second biggest group that are playing those games are actually 55-plus-year-olds, not the young people, while young people, of course, continue to dominate. We also make sure that when we're grounding these cultural currents, we're not just thinking about the trends and research happening among people across the world, but also what's happening in popular culture, because they mirror back what people follow and what they're interested in. As a result, people like Pamela Anderson has become famous and well looked after because she said, "I'm not aging, I'm lifing." We also bring in lots of examples across different parts to ground our currents. So one of the brand examples, Australian Lamb, was pretty blunt in addressing this cultural phenomenon we saw, saying that if you want to solve the generational divide, solve it with barbecue. Australian Lamb. They did not pay me to say that, by the way. It's just in our reports. Cultural corner. What's happening in culture that's further cementing us into that trend or cultural current? Olivia Rodrigo is going on tour this year, and she's opening her acts with bands that were formed well before she was born. And Leo Gonzalez got millions of followers because he was able to do these funny TikTok videos talking about what it's like working as a blue-collar worker across Starbucks and Target that resonated with people across ages, backgrounds, and geographies. So what can brands do to capitalize on this? Short on time, so I'm just gonna say one of them, but there are plenty more in our report that you can look at. But brands can really think about revisiting maybe the mascots and cartoon heroes that transcend ages, because there is a rising interest in kidults. People collecting things, loving Marvel comics, etc. They want that, so why not ignite that new wave nostalgia and bring more people around a common interest? Lastly, the human edge, and perhaps this current is particularly relevant for a week like today because everyone's talking about Gen AI. What's going to happen as it's rapidly advancing? And what we're seeing is as more emotional and money dollars are being spent towards generative AI and where it could go, there's going to be more attention put on the bleeding edge of creativity, more emphasis on the value of humanity and individuality at its core and expressed in new and refreshing ways. So we're seeing less AI Drake, or maybe even Drake using AI himself, and more Grimes AI, essentially seeing more agency by artists themselves forefronting the use of AI as a tool to really forefront what it means to be creative, maybe inviting others to create with you. So think of more visible human fingerprints in the work that we do, or more art for tech's sake and more tech for art's sake. Around the world, what we're starting to already see that grounds us in this human edge current is that artists and even pastors are saying, we need to differentiate ourselves as this trend is happening, because as AI is going to innovate and go in the direction that it does, no one can replace the sermons and the soulfulness that comes from human beings. Artists create things that have an intentionality that can't be replaced by machines. Across the brand and pop culture, and even examples from our network, we see that Jacques Mus, for instance, was also pretty blunt in engaging in this open space of where is AI going. They use CGI to create these giant Bambino bags that kind of got people talking around like, are these giant bus bags roaming around Paris? CGI created. But we're only going to see more conversations, right, around what is real, what isn't. Did I attend this event or did I not? Am I real? I'm real. As for pop culture, for instance,
Keith Haring, the late Keith Haring, had an unfinished piece that AI finished for him. Is that art? And that question, even that immediacy of a response, goes to show, and we're thinking longer term, right? This is not a trend. This is staying around and people are going to be asking about it. We also helped our client Bright Moments go from a small art gallery, digital art gallery, into this generative AI portfolio community that's continuing to produce works around the world. As I'm short on time, I'm going to blaze through this, but you can go through this on the report. But I did want to end on the note that at the end of our report, our cultural current calendar, in which we help brands conceive of how do you use all these currents we've laid out and think of those key cultural moments, whether that's Halloween, the Summer Olympics that's coming up, and integrating any of those currents. Perhaps, for instance, as we think about Summer Olympics, how do we honor the age-ambiguous triumphs across athletes, regardless of whatever age it is? If it appeals to people, brands should consider jumping in to see how they can resonate too. And with that, 160/90, culture moves us, let us move you. Please take a look at the report for yourself, and you can also contact us here on the email. Thank you.
Have you stay for a minute?
Oh, right, I can't just run away.
Don't just run away, please. I feel really honored to have you here, and it's
Thank
really
you.
exciting to have a strategist. It's not somebody that we always have speaking to our audience, and I just wanted to give our audience the opportunity to ask a question because you have all the knowledge. So are there any questions out there for Dyana? Yes.
Hi. I was wondering, when you're working with bigger clients who are potentially attracted to virality and like more super surface level things, do you find yourself having a hard time kind of convincing them to dig into the deep end of the culture, or?
It's a great question. Usually, if a client is going to such tactics, we go back to asking them what's the ultimate goal. Because we're not going to say, no, you shouldn't go for it. There's a reason behind it. But if your ultimate goal is to leave a stronger presence, more meaningful connection with your target audience, we have to do our due diligence to say the direction to actually make an influence is to be in culture. So virality, if you notice, everyone can jump in on that or trying to chase after that. But is that the best use of your resources and the attention? We're even seeing people move away from wanting to be online all the time. So that's also a space that's not going to last forever.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Do we have another one out there? Yes.
Hi there. I've been interested in the whole futurist thing since I started reading Faith Popcorn in the 90s. And I was wondering, what's the difference between your trend on aging and her whole thing on down aging? Thank you.
Oh, could you repeat the trend that you're interested in within aging?
You said the first trend you were talking about, like people like not mixing age at all.
Mm-hmm.
And Faith Popcorn talks about her thing on ages. People are starting to feel like they're wanting to down age and not feel like they're so stressed out. So the people who are older are just not going for it the way they used to. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great question. So I would say we're even thinking broader than that. So that's definitely happening. We are seeing older people wanting to be younger. And we're not just talking about aesthetically. We're talking about having more options and lifestyle blueprints shifting. That, do you have to follow the traditional milestones that you've had, right? So we're seeing that, but we're also seeing the inverse of the fluidity around younger people feeling like the pressure to grow up, which one could argue is a universal feeling, but there's more pressure today. Look no further, right, than the drunk elephant phenomenon happening with Sephora kids. For those of you who are unaware, little kids are already running to Sephora shops looking for ways to glow up because they think that's what they're supposed to do. Yes. And he said really, in case you're wondering what I'm responding to. But that fluidity doesn't mean that it's always those two directions. It means that even at where we're in life, we're deeply questioning, are we supposed to be living towards that next life milestone that we were taught to? A lot more options are available, and it's very unnerving, but at the same time super empowering because people have a lot more options, and that's gonna be a reckoning around age for how we identify, and that's why we're saying we're all a bit more age ambiguous now. What will 10 years look like for each of us? Hard to say.
Yeah.
We're crafting it together as we're going through it.
Amazing. Awesome. I think that's all the time we have. Let's hear it again for
Thank you
Dyana.
so
Dyana,
much.
thank you so much. And for our final segment for today, I'm honored to introduce to you Stefanie Brückler. Stefanie creates timeless worlds for brands across a number of industries. Take a look at her work. Stefanie Brückler is a creative director and designer based in New York City. She specializes in typography-driven branding, editorial design, and photographic art direction. With a keen eye for detail, her work is known for its thoughtfulness, elegance, and warmth, bringing tactile sensibilities into engaging print and digital experiences. Originally from Austria, she has earned a bachelor's degree in information from FH Joannem in Graz, Austria. Since moving to the States in 2015, she has worked full-time and freelance with various design studios and agencies, including NR2154, 2154, Red Antler, Creech, Studio Rodrigo, and High Tide. She now works independently and consults brands through her eponymous design studio. With agency and client experiences across a range of industries, including fashion, beauty, food and beverage, hospitality, luxury, and publishing, she has had the opportunity to work with brands such as Tiffany & Co., Bergdorf Goodman, Maison Margiela, Airbnb, Nike, and Macy's. Please welcome Stefanie Brückler.
Hello.
Hey, Stefanie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being. I feel like we're so far apart. I'm gonna move closer. I need to be close. I'm such a big fan of your work, and I feel so lucky that you've graced us with your presence and shared it with us. But I want to rewind a bit and talk about the beginning of your career. You majored in communication design, so let's unpack that. How, why communication design? What led you to that decision?
So from the very beginning, I never thought that I would study anything in the creative field. Like I was maybe music, like I was super into like playing the guitar and the piano, but I thought maybe it would be physics or like going into professional translating. But when I was in high school, there was somebody from my design school coming and doing a presentation about all the different programs that they offer. A lot of them were science-based, but then there was one that was called information design, and that got me really curious. So I applied and I got in. So with information design, they teach you all these different things, like not just traditional graphic design, but also using a camera to shoot video, how to edit that footage, photography, 3D rendering, like web development, exhibition design, all these things. So then after 2 years, you get to kind of choose a focus. And for me, that was communication design, because the other two were exhibition design or interactive, which at the time was also very like installation, exhibition focused. So at that point, I knew I wanted to go into branding and do more editorial design too. So communication design was the way forward for me.
Amazing. And when we spoke, you mentioned that there was one brand in particular whose commercials really inspired you and your journey into wanting to design a brand world. So I found that commercial, and I'd love to play it. Can we get that up on the screen, please?
Anfangs pflegte man das Frühstück, wie der Name sagt, nur in der Früh einzunehmen. Aber da es doch die köstlichste aller Mahlzeiten ist, wollten die Menschen auch zu Mittag nicht darauf verzichten. Und so kam es, wie es kommen musste, dass auch am Abend das Frühstück zum späten Genuss wurde. In da, wo Natur rein, kommt nur Natur rein.
It's so beautiful. So tell us, what is it about this? Because it's not even just this commercial, it was really this series of commercials of this brand that really stuck with you. So what was it that was so inspiring?
Yeah, so this is Darbo, an Austrian jam brand. They also do fruit syrups and honeys and all these types of products, all really inspired or taken from nature. Like they pride themselves that, you know, all their ingredients are natural and there's nothing in it besides sugar and fruit. So basically, these commercials ran on TV a lot while I was growing up. And I was always very drawn to them just because I could see, like, you know, if you just have that music in the background, you know it's a commercial from that brand. Like, they're very particular, not just with their branding, like their visual branding, but their sound branding too. And the visuals really were so inspiring because the whole aesthetic was, you know, handmade sets. It's like all paper cutouts. It felt like stop motion in a sense too. That was just something that wasn't really around back then. Like, there were always like all these very loud commercials, and this just stood out. So I was really drawn to that, and I thought that I would go into traditional advertising, doing TV commercials, because that's kind of the angle that I saw would be maybe a path in terms of a career. But looking back now that I work in branding, it totally makes sense why I love this so much. It's because they really have this 360 approach of building a brand world, whether it is a TV commercial or a printed ad or their packaging, you know it's that brand.
Yeah, amazing. So now we'll fast forward. You got through school. It was time to take on your internship. You made some pretty ambitious plans that brought you here to New York City. So how did you make that transition happen from Austria to New York?
Yeah, so in the last semester of design school, we had to do an internship. Most of my colleagues stayed in Austria or Europe, and I just wanted to get out. It was getting too small. And I made this whole list of like 100 different agencies around the world whose work I admired. I probably found them on like Behance or Site Inspire or any of those websites. And then I narrowed it down to a few where I felt more confident I could probably apply to. And in the end, like, some places got back to me being like, oh, you know, we're just a 2-person studio. We don't even have the desk space for an intern. And then, you know, most people that got back to me were based in the US. Lots of them that were, you know, not offering paid internships, so turned that down. But then it was between 2 places in New York, and I just came here and I stayed, and I had never planned on coming specifically to New York. So
and here you are. So now you work as an independent designer. What was that transition like, and what do you enjoy most about being independent?
Yeah, so at that point, I was working as a senior designer at an agency in the city, and I felt like I had already learned quite a bit. But I felt like there were other skills I could learn going independent. Like, I think there's a lot of the business side of things that I didn't really learn. So I felt like it's time for a change and to explore that. So in the beginning, I wasn't sure if I wanted to just work with my own clients or freelance with agencies or studios. So I did both. And after a year or year and a half, it kind of slowly transformed into just working with my own clients. And that has been super fun.
Awesome. Is there anything about it that you don't like?
I don't know. I think what I really, really love about it, maybe let's talk about that first, is that I really love these super close relationships I can build with my clients, especially because I work with a lot of first-time founders. So just to see them pour their heart and their soul into whatever new company they're trying to build, and then having them work with me and see them be so excited every time we meet and be so excited about the work that we create together is just the best. And what I don't like is having to acquire those new projects and the new clients because I'm not a very salesy personality. So that part is really hard for me. Like, I have to push myself to, you know, do all that new biz, which is tricky.
But I did ask in our our pre-call, I was like, well, what kind of marketing do you do for your services? And she's like, I don't have to do any.
No, it's like I don't want to do it.
Your aesthetic is stunning. It's timeless. It's modern, classic design. Where has that come from, and how do you judge the timelessness of your designs?
Yeah, so I think just working throughout my career with a lot of luxury brands and higher priced brands, it just taught me that, anything that feels more timeless has more staying power. So I'm not trying to ride on any trends when I design for my own clients now, and a lot of my work is really rooted in like historical references, a lot of type references, but also art references and architecture. And so I try to balance old with new a lot, so bringing some of those historic inspiration and pair that with a more contemporary typeface or more contemporary color palette, and try to make sure that it always feels very balanced.
Amazing. And I love that when we were talking, you mentioned that you hand draw all of your logos before digitizing them. What does that mean for you? Why is that important?
Yeah, so, you say hand-drawn. It's sometimes can look like stick figures in terms of the quality of the drawing, but I always try to start out with just sketching my ideas out. That's something I wasn't really able to do working for agencies because it's so fast-paced. But now that I have my own schedule, I can really make sure that I do this first, and then I bring it into Illustrator and really build every letter from scratch. So I don't take fonts and outline them and call that a logo. For me, it's really about the craft and making sure that whatever logo I build for a client is ownable to them too. And it's not just a font that somebody else can buy and recreate.
Awesome. I know that in your work, you're very conscientious about designing for sustainability-minded brands. Why is that so important to you, and how do you use your role as the brand designer to help fortify those principles?
Yeah, sustainability is just something I'm really passionate about in general and in my own life too. And I think as brand designers, we have a responsibility to make sure that the brandings that we create really have an impact visually, but not an impact on the earth. So really try to make sure, and I look at this very early on in the brand identity phase of a project. If I know that it's a brand that will further down the line have packaging, I already think about the different paper components, the types of papers, printing techniques that use less ink or that don't use metallic foils if you don't have to, things like that, don't use plastic. So I think about this very early on, and I try to always steer my clients in that direction too, into the first step is always less is more, which as a designer isn't the best thing, because you do want to design all these beautiful pieces of collateral.
Right.
So I just create less items for me to design, unfortunately, but I think it's worth it just thinking about what the outcome eventually is. So I try to think about everything very holistically. The packaging that the consumer will receive, will they keep it, or is it going to the landfill, or is it going to be recycled? So I try to really think through that entire life cycle of a printed piece.
Amazing. And talk to us about your dreams. What would you love designing the most, and who would you like to design for in the future?
Yeah, I think just speaking of sustainability, I'm very passionate about anything food related to. So if there's anything I could do in terms of, sustainable food waste, regenerative farming, restaurants, food businesses that are thinking in those terms, that would be super fun. And then also, since I do have that fashion background, I think working with brands that really have sustainability at their core is important to me too, especially because fashion as a traditional industry is very wasteful.
Yeah.
And then also, lastly, I haven't designed a book in a while, so I would love to work with a publisher on designing books again, just because that is something that people might cherish and keep, and that won't end up in a landfill.
Amazing. Awesome. Let's hear it for Dyana. I would love to sneak in a question from the audience if we've got one out there. I see we've got Reed walking around with a mic. Do you have a question for Dyana? They always. Don't be shy. Oh, hey, Glenn.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
That's thank you for the perspective. That was excellent. Do you get hired by? It sounds like most of your work is with. I heard startups or directly with clients. Do you work with partner companies, design firms, ad agencies, like on larger scale brands?
Not anymore. I used to in the very beginning when I started freelancing, but now it really crystallized into my own practice, and I really enjoy that.
I have a follow-up question. If that's okay.
It's okay.
If you were to, would you consider being hired by some of those companies who do have access to some of the larger brands in the world, who may need your way of thinking to steer, the kind of impacts they make on a larger scale, or do you want to make are you going to focus your impact exclusively with direct to founder relationships?
Glenn, are you offering her a job?
Well, the third follow-up is later.
So I would never say never, but yeah, right now I think my focus is really making the impact with small brands and working really closely with them. I think there are already really big teams out there for big agencies that do that work, so I'm trying to steer my impact into all the smaller clients.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, let's hear it one more time for Dyana. Thank you so much. And folks, that's our show. Another show down. 3 more to go this week. Let's give another big round of applause to all of our guests. And if they've inspired you to join our incredible community, I hope you'll do so and head on over to oneclub.org/join. Don't forget to auto-renew. And I also hope to see all of you at the TDC ceremony and exhibition later this evening. And then we'll be back here again tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll see you then. You won't want to miss it. We've got 5 incredible members. So we'll see you then. Have a great day. And thanks so much.
Step into the morning, get ready for the bus. Adam's on the mic, gonna make you feel the love. We got industry titans, creative community's finest, having insightful talks. It's gonna be the tightest. All up in Wit Studio, we got creative maestros dropping inside and know-how, making your body go now, from your head to your toe. Take your hands and go. We're gonna buzz all morning, feeling our kicks. Next in line, we got the creative icons, sharing stories and wisdom. It's gonna be mind-blowing, from behind the scenes to the big live stream. They'll have you laughing and dreaming. You know what?